Hi, this is Primary Cinema. The new Scream movie just came out in theaters, and over the last week I've been binging the series in anticipation. And I just couldn't shake one thought from my mind the whole time I was watching Wes Craven's 1996 original. That opening sequence is just so goddamn good. I mean, I knew it was well liked, and I had heard about the misdirect of killing Drew Barrymore in the opening of the film, and how that shocked audiences upon the theatrical release. But the casting of Barrymore for the role of Casey is only one of several genius choices exhibited in the wickedly fast 13-minute sequence. The more I watched, I just found more and more to love. Just the level of style and proficiency on display is phenomenal. So, if you're down for the ride, I'd like to dedicate this video to waxing poetic about this opening, the masterful tension-building filmmaking behind it, and give you 7 reasons why I love the scene so much. First up, I want to get real nerdy and talk about lenses. The scene is shot on an extremely wide-angle lens. You can tell from how the environment is distorted around Casey, especially when there's any movement. Now, I'm a total sucker for a good wide-angle lens. Whether it's being used by Yorgos Lanthimos in The Favourite or Paul Schrader in The Card Counter, I just love the maximalist impact they have on a picture. So I might just be predisposed to liking the decision, but to me the distortion on screen is integral to the overall mood of the scene, which is at first one of suspicion, and then later panic. Casey's prototypical middle-class suburban household is turned into a funhouse parody of itself, as she finds herself terrorised in the place she feels safest the most. It's by no means a subtle choice, but I think subtlety can often be overrated. The film has one simple goal in this opening sequence, which is to hook the audience and grab their attention, and Craven brazenly uses every trick in the book to achieve that ambition. Talking about lenses brings me to my next point, which is that the film is shot in anamorphic format. This means that although the movie doesn't ever get this stylized again, using anamorphic lenses as opposed to spherical ones create this really interesting reduction in sharpness and slight distortion around the edge of the frame, is probably most noticeable in this crowd shot from later on in the film. These distortions are called fall-off, and they can create a disquieting feeling in a horror film, the sense that something isn't quite right. You can see fall-off around Casey too, exacerbated by the wide-angle lens, lines and surfaces that ought to be straight are warped slightly around her. I think this has a psychological edge. Straight lines suggest order and control, but Casey, a victim of a home invasion, is suffering an extreme loss of control, and the anamorphic lenses contribute to this feeling. Of course, Scream isn't the first slasher movie to shoot on anamorphic lenses. The original Halloween used them to a similar effect, but Scream's use here is still exemplary, and there may have been a deeper reason behind the decision, as anamorphic lenses are widely considered to give a more quote-unquote cinematic look than their spherical alternatives. Scream therefore opts for the more stylized, less realistic imagery, so we may knowingly occupy a reality that is one step heightened from our own, littered as it is with horror film Easter eggs and references, from the on the nose to the subliminal.
Get in the car. Drive down to the Mackenzies.
Front door. I want you to go down the street to the Mackenzie's house. I want you to tell them to call the police.
Which brings me on to my third point, introducing the reality early.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
The opening sequence is a fantastic introduction to the world of the film. It quickly communicates that the characters in Scream are fluent in horror film lore, tropes, and cliches. This was a monumental change for audiences who saw the film on release. No horror film had been anywhere close to this self-aware and extra-textural before, so it was important to establish this up front, when the film is still effectively making a deal with the audience as to what to expect. Had the horror movie references been parked until later on in the film, it would have run the risk of breaking the logic the audience had created in their own minds, and turning off viewers. Even the Friday the 13th trivia question acts as a nod to the hardcore horror fans watching, as if to say, don't worry, you're in safe hands, we know the material. Let's move on to my fourth point, which is the sequence's use of Steadicam. Now, while screenwriter Kevin Williamson is on record as saying this sequence is a tribute to the opening of 1979 cult horror classic When a Stranger Calls, I suspect director Wes Craven looked more towards Halloween's introductory scene for stylistic inspiration. Halloween opens with a POV shot from the perspective of young Michael Myers as he roams through the Myers home and takes his first life by murdering his sister. The sleek tracking shot was achieved using a panic light system, a competitor to the more well-known Steadicam. In his director's commentary, Craven claims to have used more Steadicam in this opening segment than the rest of the film combined, and it shows in the sometimes floaty but always deliberate turns the camera makes whilst following Casey around, which to me is reminiscent of young Michael's movement through the Myers home. The Steadicam offers another stylistic possibility for Craven, which is to follow Casey in camera as she turns and runs through the house. Which takes us to number 5, the Hitchcock Influences. Hitchcock would use a similar technique of following the action in order to build tension, culminating in Rope, where he famously made an entire film to look as if it were shot in one take. Hitchcock understood that even a seemingly innocent cut by itself could act as a release valve for tension, offering the audience a brief millisecond to catch their breath. Craven doesn't opt for a faux winner here, but he does make good use of long, deliberate takes, which make the audience squirm in agony as they're forced to take in every single moment. This agony is only ramped up even more with the slow motion shot of Ghostface chasing and then stabbing Casey, a trick Hitchcock was also fond of. Another classic Hitchcock tension trick is deployed in this scene too, with the Jiffy Pop on the stove. On first viewing, I expected the Jiffy Pop to act similarly to the old reliable whistling tea kettle, serving as a diegetic sound effect, with each pop contributing more and more tension. Or I thought the bag might explode, serving as an easy fake-out scare to relieve tension early on in the scene. But the film uses the popcorn for neither purpose. Its use here is most similar to Hitchcock's old adage on how to build cinematic tension. In this clip from his 1970 AFI Master Seminar, he explains how to build tension around a dinner scene.
4 people are sitting around a table, talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different because you've given them that information that in 5 minutes' time that bomb will go off.
So in Scream, the bomb's of course postmodernized and replaced with a bag of popcorn. And all the while Casey is being manipulated and tormented by the killer, the audience is aware in the back of their minds that the popcorn is still on the stove. They're subconsciously on edge, waiting for it to explode or catch a flame. And unlike the Chekhov's kitchen knife, the popcorn ultimately doesn't really serve much of a plot purpose, beyond the smoke providing slightly reduced visibility for Casey, and creating some brilliant mise-en-scène for when her parents arrive home. But the fact it's there adds just another level of unease and discomfort in the audience. And while I'm talking about Casey's parents, let's move on to the next category and talk about the performances. It goes without saying that Drew Barrymore is exquisite in this scene. Her energy and dedication doesn't ebb even once across the course of what must have been a grueling 5-day shoot. But David Booth and Carla Haitley here deliver really fantastic performances in their brief time on screen too, showing that horror doesn't just stop with the victim. Their panicked concern is heartbreaking, and their despair at hearing their daughter's last gasps through the phone is more horrifying and gut-wrenching than most slasher movie kills can ever hope to be. They also happen to be in what is hands down my favourite shot in the entire sequence. I love it so much I've given it its very own category. The last one, number 7. This shot. Watch as the camera toots into a Dutch angle to track Casey's father running up the stairs. I love it. The composition almost reminds me of German expressionist horror films such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I don't really even have more to say about it. I just think it fucking rules. And that's the end of the video. I hope my scattershot praise and adulation was worth listening to. Maybe leave a comment if you made it this far and let me know what you think. The truth is, I just love this scene. I consider it a tour de force of horror and tension-building cinema, and I hope you got some understanding of my admiration for it from the video. Please like and subscribe for more, and you can find me on Twitter and Substack too. Bye for now.